Hello there everyone, and welcome to a new review on the channel. And today we're going to be looking at a relatively old product that got a recent facelift, and that is Past, Present, and Future by Rick Lax and Penguin Magic. Now I still have the original version, but the new version is the exact same. It just got a bit of a facelift on the cards. The cards are now, instead of being a bit of a darker brown, they are now more of a light beige. But apart from that, from the way it works, from the design, everything is pretty much the exact same. So let's learn more about this and roll the intro. Perfect. So you decide to stick around, which means you want to learn more about past, present, and future. So what is essentially this routine? This routine is essentially a triple prediction of a spectator's past, present, and future. And I think the best way for me to be able to showcase you what this is to give you a quick performance. Now, mind the angles are not the best, but we will try. So essentially, you would show that to your spectator that on the back of 3 of these cards, you actually wrote down past, present, and future. On 3 of these, on one you wrote past, on one you wrote present, and on the other one you wrote future. And you can show that to them that they're in 3 distinct positions in the deck, but you don't want them to exactly know what, so you're just going to give these cards just a small mix, just like this. And then you're going to tell them, but of course these are not just normal cards, these are tarot cards. So you could go through the cards and ask them if they know some of them or whatever. You could show the tarot cards. Then you would proceed to divide these cards into a few sections, just like this. We'll just do it so it's approximately equal. And now you're going to ask the spectator to think of their past. And as you go down the cards, to tell you the point where they feel a connection with the card. And it's important that they don't see all of the cards. They just instinctively tell you where they feel the connection. So the first card is the Hanged Man. Do they feel a connection? Let's say they do not. You place it on the table. You go to the next one, which is the Emperor. Do they feel a connection with their past with this card? Let's say in this case they say no. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to put the Emperor down as well. Let's say Death. Let's say again they go for no. Let's say the Devil. Let's say again they go for no. But now let's say they see the Hermit and they think that this is a card that they feel a connection with. You're going to place the Hermit onto the table right in front of their selection. Clean as that. You then proceed to do the same thing with the other ones. So for the purpose of this to not be super long, let's just say here they choose the Chariot. So you're just going to take the Chariot and place it right there. And for the last one, we're just going to do the same. We're just going to go and let's go for quickly now. Let's go for the Sun. But normally you could essentially have them go through the cards and do their choices whatsoever. And then you tell them that they had a free choice of cards from each of these stacks. One to represent their past, one their present, and one their future. And you can cleanly show that there's not a single card that is marked in this packet. There's not a single card that is marked in this packet. And there is not a single card that is marked in this packet. So that means that they got the card that you thought was going to represent their past, correct. The card that you thought was going to represent their present, absolutely correct. And the one to represent their future, absolutely correct. And then you could show that you got it straight on. And of course you could give a reading before you reveal. You could give a reading, oh, so your past, you feel the Hermit, whatever. You could have given a reading regarding that to the spectator if they so wanted. But for the purpose of this, we're not going to go dive into that specifically because it would take too long in order for us to do the presentation. But you could see essentially what this effect is. And at the same time now, I'm showing you how fast I reset it so that you can kind of just see how fast it resets as well. And now I'm ready to go to another table if I so wish. So this is essentially past, present, and future. Now let's talk about where you buy this, how much does it cost, and what do you get. So past, present, future is marketed by Penguin Magic. When I bought it, it was exclusively from Penguin Magic, but as of now, I do think that they push it to more major dealers. I know they even have it at my local magic shop. So Vanishing Ink, ALAKAZAM, some other shops may have it in stock as well. It's available for the price of $49.99, so $50 US, which is around 70 something Canadian. And what you get with your purchase is, well, of course, you get your deck of tarot cards. This is the This is the card shark one. I know the new version, I don't believe it's still the card shark one. So it's something different, but it still operates the same way, but it is different. The original one came with the card shark one, which I really like. I think it's a really nice deck of tarot. On the box, you also have a really nice crib to give you what the cards mean in like one word. So for example, if you were to, in that case, to give a reading and you forgot what the Hermit was, you could just move the card box to the side, you take a glance there, and you know that the Hermit means loneliness, and you could do a reading based on that. So the card box is also gimmicked in a small way. And then what you get is a tutorial. It's around an hour and a half with Rick Lax, and he goes over everything that you need. He goes over how the deck works, how to reset it, how the method works, as well as to the design choices that went behind it. And at last, he also tells you, if ever the deck starts to not function properly, how to reapply the special thing that you need in order for it to function as is and as it should be. So what's nice about this is that you don't have to keep rebuying one. You could just reapply to the same deck the solution in order for it to work. So that is what you get with your purchase of Past, Present, Future. Now let's talk difficulty. So how difficult is this effect to do? Now this effect is not technically hard to do, but it is a bit finicky. Even now when I keep performing it, sometimes there is a bit of finicky things that happen, so I have to adjust. Because of the way it works, it is simple, but as I said, there is some moments where, depending if the deck operates as it should be, or if you change temperature, or if you go from very hot and cold, and the cards may react with humidity and whatnot. I think we all know what I'm talking about here. The deck may be a bit too rough or a bit too loose. So it depends regarding that, how you change it. And in my presentation, I found that just holding the cards like this, showing to the spectator, and then dealing it down from this position onto the table is the safest way for me to perform. But there are also ways you can just spread them on the table and have a spectator touch one. There's ways where you can fan them in front of the spectators and have them just call out one. There's different ways to do it, but I found that the safest way for me, and the way that my deck works, and kind of with the temperature in Canada and whatever, it's to just be super safe, just have them in my hand and say, do you feel a connection with this one? They're going to say no. Okay, we're going to deal on the table. Do you feel a connection with this one? I feel that is better, and I also feel it adds intrigue because they make a choice without actually knowing what's after. So their choice actually means something more than, for example, them seeing all of the cards and just picking the one they prefer among them. So that's the way that I do it, but relatively, it is pretty simple. And you don't even have to do a reading. So if you don't like cold reading, you don't even have to do it. You can just do the reveal of the past, present, future, that you nail it head on. So working wise and performance wise, it is pretty easy regarding that. You know how to work with this type of deck. Moving on now to practicality. So how practical is this effect? Well, for starters, to do this effect, you're gonna need your box. The box is relatively small, so it is something that could go in your top pocket, in your jeans pocket, or somewhere in order to perform it. But you do need to keep in mind that this is something that needs a table. So for the best operation of this, you're gonna need a table. You could do it with this, if you have two spectators, one of them is just gonna place their hand like this for you to deal the cards in, and the other one that makes the choices is gonna hold the card that they decide to choose in their hand. But again, it complicates things, it complicates the procedure and whatnot. So in my opinion, I think it's better to have a table. In regards to inspectability, the deck is not inspectable. You do show it cleanly from the start. You show that there's only 3 cards printed. At the end, you show that all the cards are not printed. Only 3 of them are printed. So it is very clear and very clean, but you cannot have the spectator handle this deck whatsoever. They will discover the method in an instant. In regards to repeatability, you could repeat this effect because it's going to be different outcomes every time. The choices are fully free by the spectators. That is something to keep in mind. In terms of reset, you saw the reset. It took me around It took me around 10-15 seconds to reset the deck in the way that I perform it. It's a bit longer than normal. So if you were to just spread the cards, the reset is much quicker. But for me, because of the way that I perform it, the reset is a bit longer, but I'm gonna come forward with that as well. And in terms of angles, the angles are pretty much 360 for this effect. You could do the surrounded, no problem. In regards to where to perform, so where would you perform this effect? This can be performed close up, this can even be performed on Zoom, or it can be performed in a parlor/cabaret setting. It's going to work very well. This will play to a bit of a larger audience as well if you can frame it correctly and make it play well. And I think that if you are into tarot cards and you're maybe just, if you are into tarot cards, this is going to work perfectly for you. If you are not really into tarot cards, I think this is a perfect segue into it because it's very simple, and you also have the crib telling you what every card means. So if you want, you could just have the box here, and when they select the cards, you just take a glance while they're doing something, and you can give them a reading, which is really nice, and it's super, super simple. So I think this is a good entryway point, a good entryway gateway in the realm of tarot cards for performers of all venues. Considering now everything that I've said, what are the positives and negatives of this effect? First, let's start out with the negatives. One, the effect is completely unexaminable. There are ways to do this effect that require sleight of hand and that require, the cards to be the same every single time. But that means that the cards will be inspectable and the cards will be, could be given out to the spectator if you so want. Now, those are not part of this, but I am telling you that if you want the cards inspectable, there are ways to do it, but those ways come as well with some drawbacks. But again, this is not inspectable, so for those that would think this could have been handled by the spectator, unfortunately, it is not. And the second negative that I have for this is I find because of the finish of the cards, these are not really cardstock, neither are they plastic, they're kind of in between. I find because of the finish of the cards, which is a bit more laminated, the solution doesn't stick as well, so the cards are a bit too slippery in my opinion. Maybe it's just my deck. I even reapplied to this deck what needed to be done, and it's still a bit slippery, more slippery than I would want it to be, but less slippery than it was before. So that is something that often puts me out of wanting to perform this, especially sometimes where it's a big gig and I'm a bit stressed and I sweat from the hands. I know for a fact this will not be something I can perform because the cards are a bit finicky at that. But regarding the positives, one, it's a very original routine. It's a very easy routine and can be performed in a lot of places. It's also a direct routine. The routining of this and the premise to this is very good. The deck of cards that you get is very beautiful as well. The instructions are good. And I also think it's a good gateway for people to kind of get into the world of tarot without diving too much if they are scared of doing so. I think this is a perfect kind of gateway trick that you could do. Considering all of this, would I recommend this and what do I give it out of 10? So to be fully honest with you, would I recommend this effect? And I would say I'm not sure. Personally, I've bought this, I've performed it a few times, but there's so many more routines that I like to do with a tarot deck that uses ungimmicked cards and uses just simple sleight of hand that I think play as strong as this effect does. And I think that it is good. I think that the best part of this is that's a freely named card. It's not a selection procedure or anything like that. It's truly choose anyone that speaks to you, which I think is the strength of this. But personally, in a performing environment, I don't usually do table hopping tarot, so it's usually one tarot routine for a group of people. And in those cases, I feel just doing a routine where there's a force or a very simple procedure to select the card is as strong as this. So I've not used it much since I've got it, if I'm being fully honest and transparent with you. So I don't know if I would recommend this. It is still good. It could appease to a lot of people, but it is not to say relatively for me. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I'm still giving it a good mark. I'm giving it a 7.5 because it is good and it is still something interesting, but it doesn't appeal for me necessarily. But again, it could appeal for you. There's other reviews out there. This is really well received. People love this effect. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I've experienced more tarot tricks than others, so I'm more in line with those than this. But again, it is still good. It could appeal to you. If even after this review you're still interested in it, feel free to buy it. You will not be disappointed. But that's all I have to say about Past, Present, and Future by Rick Lax. So thank you so much everyone for watching, and I'll see you all in my next review. Have a great one, and bye-bye.